Dinghai Fujian Records. Chapter 94. Entering the palace. Someone took a cold open-air bath in the second month, and the next day, his wish was granted, he caught a cold. On the journey, Chen Xing felt dizzy and fatigued, so Xiang Shu could only share a horse with him the entire way. The three of them slowed their speed, and Chen Xing slept and woke intermittently as he was slumped against Xiang Shu's back. It was several days before he began to recover, and even then, he was beset with crippling exhaustion. Before they entered the city, the drought fiend King Simawei had been temporarily hidden in an open space near Feng Palace. Chen Xing let him move about on his own, but he had to be extra careful about interacting with the townsfolk, and if Chen Xing needed anything, he would send someone with a message. When they arrived in Chongan, Chen Xing couldn't stop sneezing, and he rubbed his nose vigorously. They had come back again, and he, Feng Tian, and Xiang Shu sat in front of the market, each of them eating a huge bowl of noodles. Feng Tian, then. I'll be going. I'm heading first to the Songbei residence to stay there as I slowly gather more information. After we finish eating, we'll split up and act separately. Chen Xing had just recovered from his cold, and his attention still wandered a little, but he managed to nod his head. According to his private discussion with Feng Tian, after they entered the city, Feng Tian would immediately go back and make sure that his elder brother was still alive, before figuring out a way to obtain the yin-yang mirror. Chen Xing didn't want to tag along, so as to prevent Feng Tian from even forming an inkling of understanding. If any unforeseen events happened, things would become difficult to control. Everything could wait until after they obtained the artifact. Seeing that Xiang Shu's expression was as usual, Feng Tian thought, this guy's the great Chanyu, so there's no need to worry about him anyways. With that, he used water as a substitute for tea and said, come, after we finish this cup we'll temporarily take our leave of each other. After you two find a place to stay, send me a letter. Xiang, this dog, I'll leave it to you. You go ba, Chen Xing replied dully. The dog would be a little safer with himself. Xiang Shu was currently staring into the tea, deep in thought. Feng Tian reminded Chen Xing to check the color of the sky, saying, it's getting late. Chen Xing knew what Feng Tian was reminding him of. Last time, when he came to Chongan, he was in good health. This time, after catching a slight cold, no matter how much they rushed along on their journey, they also still had to arrange for Simawei's hiding spot and wasted quite a bit of time there. When they entered the city, it was already almost twilight. Compared to last time, they had come a whole half-day later. The markets of Chongan were bustling, but because it was close to the time the markets closed, the tailors' shops and the bathhouses had all closed. Chen Xing stood on the street and scratched his head, before looking at Xiang Shu. As before, Xiang Shu didn't make a single sound. Wherever Chen Xing went, he followed. Where should we live? Chen Xing asked. We need to find a place to stay. Xiang Shu, do you know anyone in Chongan? Chen Xing remembered Yuan Xin, but he didn't want to go find him at all. He sighed and said, when I was small, I had a childhood friend who now lives in Chongan, but I don't wish to see him. From Chen Xing's words, Xiang Shu heard his dejection, and he could vaguely guess that something had happened between them. Everyone changes, Xiang Shu replied mildly. Such is the way of the world. Chen Xing suddenly had a thought. That day, the reason why Xiang Shu hadn't revealed his identity as the Great Chanyu until much later, was it because he had also felt that after Fujian had become the emperor, he had changed from how he had been before? Then, perhaps in the beginning, Xiang Shu didn't want to enter the royal palace. Afterwards, because they had no place to stay, he had no choice but to go find Fujian, which had brought a multitude of other problems with it. How much money do we have left? Chen Xing asked. Is it enough to stay at an inn? Xiang Shu pinched their last ingot of gold between his index and middle fingers, waving it at Chen Xing. In my city, Chen Xing hadn't earned any silver by acting as a traveling doctor, and on the journey, he had depended solely on Feng Qianjun and Xiang Shu to earn money. It was different from last time they had come to Chongan. This time, they didn't even have the money to spend on taking a bath and washing their clothes. The clamor of the market slowly died down, and Xiang Shu seemed to be mulling something over. Chen Xing suddenly recalled something, and he said, "I have something that I want to confirm." With that, they came to Beihu Street that spanned the entirety of the city, from east to west. Chen Xing stood by the side of the road and was silent for a moment, a hint of anticipation in his eyes, standing there calmly. Not long after, a squadron of people came from the east. 4 horses led the way, and royal guards rode on them. Behind them followed a carriage inlaid with jade. Chen Xing only wanted to confirm with his own eyes that Cui Bian was still living. As expected, he was still alive. Though on this journey, he and Feng Qianjun had already guessed that it was so, the moment he saw that scene with his own 2 eyes, his heart still felt stuffed full of emotions. Chen Xing wanted to give him a shout, but he remembered the result from last time, when he had met Cui Bian face to face in Yuan Xin's house. In the end, he had even involved Cui Bian, causing his family to lose their lives and Cui Bian to die under Fujian's emperor's sword. This time, he really didn't want to pull him in again. Though he wanted to see if the person in the horse carriage was him, his heart had settled already with this single glance. He didn't want Cui Bian to fall in love with him again. He had had enough of him last time when Cui Bian had chased him all the way to Chi Le Chuan to confess to him. Chen Xing's heart was very conflicted, and he hesitated for a long time. Xiang Shu glanced at him and seemed to sense it, and his forehead furrowed deeply. The horse carriage was not too far from them. Chen Xing couldn't resist constantly craning his neck and peering out at it, but the soldiers opening up a path said, "Move aside! Move aside! Xiang Shu!" The guard then lifted his whip to menacingly shoo Chen Xing away. Chen Xing hurriedly backed away, smiling as he said, "All right, I've seen what I needed to, let's go ba." Xiang Shu had originally thought to let it go, but he couldn't swallow that down. He didn't even turn his head back as he flung his arm out, and a glittering gold ingot flew out. It sped through the air, instantly giving that guard a black eye, who let out a pained cry and fell off his horse. Chen Xing was greatly startled by this, and he hurried to grab Xiang Shu's hand, shouting, "What are you doing? Let's go quickly!" That strike sent everything into chaos. The guards all rushed up at once, drawing their bows and knocking arrows to them, encircling the 2 of them right in the center. But Xiang Shu was as steady as a mountain, and he didn't even move one bit, standing in front of Chen Xing, coldly watching the assembled people. "Don't attack!" Chen Xing said, tugging at Xiang Shu. "Let's just go ba." Xiang Shu glanced at Chen Xing, who hurried to explain, "Please, have mercy, don't bully them, these guards were also raised lovingly by their parents." Everyone. Their opponents numbered more than 20, and Xiang Shu was a single person, but with how Chen Xing put it, it was like he was slapping the guards in the face, and they immediately flew into a great rage. When Xiang Shu heard these words, however, he felt very pleased, and he wrapped one arm around Chen Xing's ribs, his hand on his back, and with the next step he was going to pick him up by the waist, cross the width of the street, shake off the guards, flip over a wall, and leave. But an impatient voice sounded from within the horse carriage, "What is it now?" The curtain of the carriage lifted, and a foot clad in a black martial boot trod upon the step of the carriage. The owner didn't get out, however, and a hand wearing an old ring lifted the curtain aside, revealing the upper half of Cui Bian clad in a golden red martial robe, looking handsome under the twilight. Chen Xing. Chen Xing and Cui Bian's gazes met for a moment. Cui Bian doubtfully appraised the 2 of them as the guards hurried forth to report. "Cui Bian," Chen Xing said, smiling. Cui Bian asked quizzically, "Do I know you?" Chen Xing hurried to wave his hand, saying, "No, you don't." Chen Xing was covered in the dust of the road, and he was still wearing that outfit that he had changed into in my city. On their long trek to Chongan, he hadn't had a chance to wash it at all, and even his face was streaked with dirt. Then there was Xiang Shu, who wore a hunter's outfit and carried a bow on his back and a sword at his waist, similarly dirty beyond belief. They looked like two brothers who had come to the capital to make a living. Fujian looked at them suspiciously, feeling absolutely no interest towards Chen Xing. After listening to what his own family's guards had to say, he nodded and let the curtain down. "My family's lord said he'll let it go," the guard said crudely. "He doesn't want to waste any time on you guys. Quickly fuck off. Chen Xing." And with that, the horse carriage passed in front of them, leaving. Chen Xing thought, "Alright ba, this can also be seen as a twist of fate." Xiang Shu stood at Chen Xing's side, quietly watching him. Originally, Chen Xing didn't want to see Fujian that much, but coincidentally had still run into him, and yet the result was completely unexpected. "Seeing that he's living pretty well, I feel reassured," Chen Xing said, still reminiscing as he stood there. "I'm really pretty happy for him," and saying this, he smiled towards Xiang Shu. "Where'd you throw the gold to? Let me go search for it." However, Xiang Shu turned to leave. Chen Xing hurried to catch up, asking, "Wait. Where are you going?" "To find Jian Tou," Xiang Shu said matter-of-factly to the soldiers guarding the back door of Viang Palace. "It's you again," that guard murmured. "Strange, why did I say again?" Immediately, the guards started a commotion as they rushed forward, ready to attack. Chen Xing chased him to the back entrance, reaching out a hand to tug at Xiang Shu's sleeve, but Xiang Shu, with his sword and sheath moving in tandem, knocked two guards to the ground, before reaching back and grabbing Chen Xing's wrist, dragging him into the palace. After the time of a stick of incense, Viang Palace was once again in an uproar. Xiang Shu dragged Chen Xing along, while Chen Xing hugged the dog, his face writ in an expression of horror as he thought, "Why is this happening again?" But this time their route seemed to be different, there were less guards in Xiang Shu's way, and when they finally arrived at Viang Palace, Xiang Shu had the long sword in one hand and Chen Xing in the other. Chen Xing shouted, "Wait! This isn't the same as what we agreed on." Xiang Shu lifted his foot, and he kicked open the main doors to Dengming Hall in Viang Palace, where a group of guards had surrounded Fujian protectively. "Shulakong!" Fujian mumbled. He was currently discussing matters of state with the literary and martial officials, but as soon as he saw Xiang Shu, he was shocked into stopping. Chen Xing pressed a hand to his forehead. Xiang Shu felt that something seemed to be off, but he couldn't pinpoint what it was. Fujian also felt a little doubtful, why did this scene seem to be familiar? The gathered civil and martial officials all exclaimed, surprised, "Great Chanyu!" Chen Xing thought, since things are the way they are, I might as well play along. With that, he looked in Xiang Shu's direction and said, his voice filled with awe, "Xiang Shu, what did they call you?" "The Great Chanyu." 1K later, Princess King He had servants bring in food as she personally poured out wine for Xiang Shu. Fujian laughed loudly as he reminisced on the past with him. With nothing else to do, Chen Xing had to listen to all of it once again, and he fed the dog a lamb bone. That little dog was currently gnawing at the bone, but as soon as it saw Princess King He, it too seemed to feel that it had known her before, and it couldn't help barking wildly. "Yo, King He said, smiling. "So fierce? What is it called?" "Chen Xing, M. It's called Chen Xing," Xiang Shu answered politely. "Chen Xing." Chen Xing sucked in a deep breathing as he thought, forget it. Fujian then said, "Who is this little Xiangdi? We haven't been introduced yet." "I'm also called Chen Xing," Chen Xing took the initiative and replied. Xiang Shu hadn't thought that Chen Xing would actually be this obedient, and he spat out the wine that he just drank. Another loud bout of laughter came from Fujian, before he said, "Shulakong, where exactly did you go?" For more than a year now, I sent people everywhere to search for you. Chen Xing thought, and yet I didn't see you go searching for him. You're just trying to win this cheap victory with your words. Xiang Shu was right. You're the emperor now, and if you really wanted to find someone, how could you not find them? Suddenly, he dimly sensed another side to this. Fujian's attitude towards Xiang Shu's disappearance, actually, had he actually been happy about it? After all, if the great Chanyu of Qi Le Chuan disappeared for a long time, sooner or later they would have to re-elect a leader. If the person holding the title changed, that meant that Fujian could start trouble to regain his purple scroll. It wasn't until now that Chen Xing understood, but had Xiang Shu known about this since a long time ago? Was it only that he didn't bring it up, even at the end? Most of the time, did he just not choose to say anything? 1 year ago, Qiu Wang, Xiang Shu was just about to speak when Chen Xing reached out a hand and pressed down lightly on Xiang Shu's thigh with his index and middle fingers. Felt very stifled in the north, Xiang Shu's cover-up was executed very naturally as he replied. Qiu Wang wanted to take a trip to Jiangnan, but unwittingly fell prey to an ambush set up by the Han people in the Central Plains, which caused Qiu Wang to fall into enemy hands. Oh, Fujian replied, as if he was deep in thought. Did you head down to Jiangnan to find your destiny? Or did you go to find your mother's family? Xiang Shu furrowed his brows, as if Fujian had said something that he shouldn't have. Fujian knew that Xiang Shu had a Han person as a mother, so the part that he didn't want him to say would naturally be that he went to go find his mother's family. Fujian was clearly a little curious, and he glanced a few times at Chen Xing, before asking, "How did you two get to know each other? Young friend, where do you hail from?" Chen Xing thought, if I were to mention my background, then that would definitely frighten you all to death. My dad's called Chen Zhe, Chen Xing said, smiling. We used to live in Jinyang before, but in the Great Battle of Jinyang, my parents both passed away. Fujian was instantly startled, and he murmured, "You're Chen Zhe's descendant?" Xiang Shu. Fujian furrowed his brow. Do you still have any living relatives? I do. Chen Xing took a look at Xiang Shu, and he began to smile. Xiang Shu's face was filled with puzzlement, and he asked Chen Xing, "Who's your dad?" Chen Xing replied, still smiling, "An ordinary scholar." Fujian explained to Xiang Shu, of Zhen's multitude of civil and martial officials, half of them were Chen Xianchen's students back in the day. The other half of his students are in Jiankong. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing thought for a moment, before deciding not to tell Fujian that Wang Meng was his shiksheng, to prevent Wang Zi from gaining any understanding of his school's teachings. Right after, Fujian continued, "In these years, where did you go?" Back then when Jinyang city fell, Chen Xianchen's family perished along with it, which was Zhen's greatest regret in his entire life. Oh, is that so? Chen Xing didn't know much about what happened back then, and he said, "When the city fell, a friend of my father's brought me out. Afterwards, he only said that my entire family died in the chaos of battle." Fujian sighed. "A pity, truly a great pity." "It's not a pity," Chen Xing smiled. "For a scholar to die for his country is to fulfill a wish that he sought, so how can it be called a pity?" Back then, the Han person Ran Min had created the country of Great Wei in the north. Chen Zhe nurtured students for Ran Min, and those who came out to take on roles as officials were all unrivaled scholars. If he wanted to live, as long as he was an official for Fujian, then naturally his entire family would be protected well and he would be paid generously as a great official. But with Ran Min's death, after Chen Zhe's family handed their beloved son over to Bailey Lun, they used their deaths to repay their country. It really caused Fujian to be filled with a sense of defeat that had accompanied him all these years. The gaze with which Xiang Shu looked at Chen Xing became extremely complex. With that, Fujian nodded. Finally, Chen Xing couldn't resist asking the question that had been lingering in his heart for 3 whole years. I heard that my dad's student back in the day, Yuan Xin, is also an official in the court. Fujian thought for a moment, before saying, Yuan Xin, yes. In the beginning, Zhen sent him to persuade your father, to persuade him to return. Originally Zhen believed that due to the teacher-student relationship between Yuan Xin and your dad, Chen Xianzhen would open up to him a little. If Zhen had known earlier, he would have let Jinglu. From this simple exchange, Xiang Shu seemed to sense something, and he glanced at Chen Xing. But Chen Xing merely smiled a little sorrowfully. He had guessed the general gist of things. To say that Yuan Xin had caused his parents' deaths was not wholly accurate. The words that Feng Tian had spoken back then were to goad him, so it was probably half true and half false. The three of them were silent for a moment, before Fujian said, Little Chen Xianzhen, you must come to Zhen's court here to be an official. Chen Xing suddenly burst into loud laughter, thinking that Fujian was very amusing. Xiang Shu's words were once again stopped, and in the end, he didn't want to speak at all, choosing instead to take a sip of the wine. Fujian was startled at that. Seeing that there were some things that Chen Xing could not conveniently voice, Xiang Shu finally said coldly, Jian Tou, his dad chose death over surrender and used his death to repay his country. How could he come to be your official? There was anger in Fujian's gaze. Chen Xing explained while smiling, the great Chanyu has spoken too harshly. It's only because after my family died, Shifu told me time and again that he wouldn't let me learn the way of state affairs, and he would only let me be a doctor. I haven't read even the slightest bit of the foundational works, so I'd only cause you more problems. That's why I apologize, I have the heart but not the ability. But Fujian didn't let that stop him, and he said with a smile, even if you're just an official in name, that's also good. Back then, when Chen Zhe had died, the shockwaves that rippled across the entire country were too much. Many scholars felt guilty about him dying a martyr's death. If Chen Zhe's son were to come forth, then on some level, it would greatly lessen the sting of this thorn. Are you able to understand human speech? Xiang Shu also grew enraged. Chen Xing hurried to indicate for Xiang Shu not to get angry. Tugging his hand, he said to Fujian, my dad had his reasons, and the many great officials of the court must also have their own ambitions. Some hold their homeland dear in their hearts, and some are willing to treat your majesty as a wise ruler, and are willing to make the divine land flourish and prosper, stopping all wars and battles. It's just that what they chose was different, so why does your majesty allow matters from the past to weigh so heavily upon you? Upon hearing these words, Fujian's expression finally grew a little better. He realized that as the ruler of a country, he had indeed gone too far just now. Doggedly continuing on even after Chen Xing had politely refused him went against the demeanor that he held as a ruler, and it was exactly because of this that he had been scolded by Xiang Shu. He could only say, Zhen salutes little Chen Xianzhen with a cup. You didn't even tell me, Xiang Shu said, his brow furrowed. Didn't you also keep it from me that you were the great Chanyu? Chen Xing asked, amused. Now we're even, so let me also salute the great Chanyu with a cup. Xiang Shu. After this, what do you have planned? Fujian asked Xiang Shu. Since you've come, stay here ba. Xiang Shu thought about that, before glancing at Chen Xing, saying, we have yet to discuss this in detail. When Fujian heard that he didn't say any more, instead just nodding. After Xiang Shu finished drinking the wine, he said, Jian Tou, go take care of your own matters ba, we'll bid you farewell for now. The third month brought with it spring, and on this spring night, a gentle breeze blew through Viang Palace. Chen Xing had drunk some wine, and, still a little tipsy, he went with Xiang Shu to the bathing chambers in the palace. His shoulders and back were red from soaking in that hot water as Chen Xing sneaked a glance at Xiang Shu to his side. Great Chanyu. A servant knelt by the side of the pool. Chen Xing said, no need to wait on us any further. You may take your leave, Xiang Shu said indifferently. With that, the servant finally left. The four seas and the prairies are all the great Chanyu's land, and all of the people under the sky are the great Chanyu's people, Chen Xing said to himself. The master of Siwai, the number one warrior, Shulukong. Xiang Shu's words once again stopped. Being the great Chanyu looks to be a grand position, but in reality it's probably very hard. Chen Xing couldn't help but sigh as he thought of Xiang Shu from before. You have to protect so many of your people, and you don't have any choice on the matter. Xiang Shu froze, startled, before looking at Chen Xing thoughtfully. Chen Xing felt a little abashed from his stare, but a red blush rose on Xiang Shu's face and he stiffly turned his head away. A moment later, he turned back to look at him strangely, so Chen Xing had Xiang Shu turn around as he wiped Xiang Shu's back with a towel. You always know what I'm thinking about, Xiang Shu said. I'll do it myself ba, you've just recovered from a great illness, and you're an exorcist, you're not a servant. Plus, half the court's Han people were your dad's students, so Gyuwang doesn't dare to let you be his servant. What's this now? Chen Xing chuckled. When we first met, I didn't know who you were, and you didn't know who I was. Is there any difference between now and then? Chen Xing recalled before, when he had been in a coma, Xiang Shu had definitely held him every day to feed him, wipe his body, turn him over, and wash his face for him. At that, he couldn't help the sense of warmth that blossomed in his heart. Xiang Shu was silent. He then said, Have you gone back to see your home? No, Chen Xing replied. After Shifu died, I came down the mountain to find you, to investigate this matter. When Xiang Shu heard those words, he felt they were a little strange, but he didn't ask any questions that he had in mind. Chen Xing then said, It's fine, there's still many days ahead of us. The years stretch long in front of us, and we can be together for a long time, but as for what you think of that, I don't know. Chen Xing thought. He suddenly thought through another point, whether Xiang Shu would like him the same way he had before was no longer important. As long as Xiang Shu could live happily, what would it matter whether or not he responded to him in kind? That night, Fujian had the two of them stay in another bedchamber which was completely different from the one last time. There was only a single large bed in the room. Chen Xing. Xiang Shu also didn't say anything as he undid his belt and took off his robes. He sat down on the side of the bed and glanced at Chen Xing, before glancing back to the bed and raising an eyebrow. Chen Xing immediately understood what he meant. Should we request a change in rooms? Can you sleep like this? Chen Xing nodded in response. The communication between the two of them was that of tacit understanding, as if they didn't even need to speak to understand the other's meaning. Even Xiang Shu felt this was a little unexpected. I'll sleep on the inside. Chen Xing clambered to the side of the bed against the wall as he said, The palace is really nice. It's very comfortable, much better than sleeping on the road. This was the most comfortable bed that Chen Xing had ever slept on. Xiang Shu didn't say anything either, instead choosing to lie down. There was only a single cotton blanket covering the two of them, and Xiang Shu tugged it a little bit towards himself, but Chen Xing said, What are you doing? It's not covering me. Xiang Shu furrowed his brow. Chen Xing could only scoot over a little towards him, but the blanket was only so large, so the two of them could only move a little closer to the center. Chen Xing's heart thumped loudly, though this wasn't the first time that he and Xiang Shu had slept together. That day on the boat, they had even hugged while both of them were fully naked, but that time he had really been too sleepy. Neither of them made a sound. Chen Xing, with his eyes closed and his back to Xiang Shu, couldn't fall asleep for a while. As Xiang Shu laid there for a while, his breathing suddenly grew rapid, and with a jerk, he woke up. Chen Xing originally had his back to him, but upon hearing Xiang Shu's breaths growing harsh, he turned his head around to shoot him a look. Is it too hot? Chen Xing asked. No, Xiang Shu said, turning his head and giving Chen Xing a strange look. Just now, I don't know why,
but as I was half asleep, I had a dream, but it also felt like I hadn't fallen asleep. Chen Xing, oh, what did you dream of? Xiang Shu's entire face suddenly flushed red, and he waved his head, turning over so his back was to Chen Xing as he said, "Sleep ba." Chen Xing. After a long while, Xiang Shu couldn't resist sitting up again, his breath scorching hot. He glanced at Chen Xing, before climbing off the bed. Ah! Chen Xing was still sleepy-eyed as he too rose. What's wrong? I can't sleep, Xiang Shu said. I'm getting up and sitting for a while. Chen Xing was very tired, and he didn't want to pay any more attention to him. Xiang Shu was wearing a pair of black pants. When he lowered his head, he saw a pair of thin leather shoes set by the bedside. He suddenly felt that many things seemed to have happened before, but he didn't know where, and he couldn't recall them at all. Xiang Shu walked out, bathed in the moonlight as he sat down outside of the hall. His mind was filled with all sorts of things, some were very close, like Chen Xing's bare skin and the warmth of his body as Xiang Shu pulled him into his embrace. In the waves and the wind, the large boat swayed gently, and in the instant that motion pushed them towards each other, countless emotions flashed through his head. But when exactly had all these things happened? End chapter. Dinghai Fusion Records. Chapter 95. Narrative. 3 Shishan earlier. Nightfall, Songbei residence. Since the moment Feng Tian saw his elder brother, his hands had been trembling uncontrollably. Dage, Feng Tian said, trying his best to control his own trembling voice. I'm here. Oh? How was your trip? Feng Tian was still as before, sitting in his wooden wheelchair, his manner easy and casual as he sipped his tea. He had been apart from his younger brother for no more than half a year, and had just returned from a trip to Jiankong before the year started. Feng Tian only stared at his elder brother in a daze. Slightly baffled, Feng Tian knitted his brows and asked, "What's the matter?" Feng Tian immediately shook his head and took a deep breath before saying, "During this period of 6 months, the matter of restoring the country." Somewhat confused, Feng Tian just looked at him. Feng Tian had planned to say a lot of things, but the moment he truly faced his elder brother, nothing actually came out. Because their parents had passed away early on, the relationship between Feng Tian and his elder brother was truly close. From childhood and until he grew up, there was nothing that he could hide from him. Feng Tian could only feel that his younger brother had been acting a little strange today, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly what was off about him. The matter of restoring the country, is it still going well? Feng Tian asked, his smile containing a hint of sadness. Feng Tian was silent, not giving any reply. He took another sip of his tea before putting a cup in front of his younger brother, which Feng Tian then took. "That's not something you should be concerned about," Feng Tian replied. "What took you so long?" Thinking about it for a moment, Feng Tian said, "Because of the chaos of war in Xiangyang, the road became difficult to travel." Feng Tian still had a slight doubt. "Did you bring Senluo Wangxiang?" Feng Tian untied the scabbard and put Senluo Wangxiang on the table. Drawing it out, Feng Tian first took a look at saber before returning it to the scabbard. "Since you're here," Feng Tian said, "just stay ba. This saber is a precious heirloom of our family, I'll safe-keep it in your stead." Feng Tian. Feng Tian wanted to open his mouth, yet he couldn't find any excuse. Since his elder brother wanted to hold onto the Senluo saber, what was there to be done? If he said any word of rebuttal, it would undoubtedly raise his guard. Though, when he thought about it, the key to controlling the divine weapons had long since been lost. Nevertheless, back then, in the ruins of the exorcism department inside the yin-yang mirror, Chen Xing had still found some ancient records. Even if Feng Tian held onto it, he couldn't use it either, so there shouldn't be any trouble leaving it with him for the time being. Feng Tian could only say, "All right." Then, Feng Tian casually said, "In a few more days,
Dage will bring you to meet a friend. You must be tired from your journey, so go take a rest first. Someone, take the second master to have a rest. Left with no other choice, Feng Qianjun could only go take a bath and change his clothes. As he was about to leave, he took a glance toward the closed door, only to see, from the gap of the door, Feng Qianyi once again drawing the Senluo saber. Lowering his head, he gazed at the blade of the saber in silence. The next day, Viang Palace. When Chen Xing woke up after hearing some bustle, his entire person was wrapped around Xiang Shu's body. Xiang Shu, on the other hand, was motionless, the sound of his breathing was controlled, and his whole body was stiff. Chen Xing also dared not to move, this posture was really too ambiguous. When he had been sleeping, he had actually involuntarily leaned over to Xiang Shu's side. Using his arm as a pillow, Chen Xing hugged Xiang Shu's neck, burying his head between his shoulder and neck with one of his legs propped over his body, all while Xiang Shu's arms were both spread out. This was how Chen Xing coiled himself into him. Chen Xing could only pretend to still be sleeping as he slowly turned his body over and little by little, separated himself from Xiang Shu's body. Then, at last, Xiang Shu finally let out a sigh of relief. He got up in the blink of an eye and climbed off the bed. A eunuch came over bringing new clothes. Obviously, because of the great Chanyu's return yesterday night, the tailors had made them as fast as possible that very night based on the measurements of Xiang Shu's old clothes. There were also pieces of jewelry as well as the 16 Hus signet ring engraved with the ruler's seal inside the case. Hearing the sound, like a swarm of bees, people from the outside entered the room to serve Xiang Shu. According to the custom of the Hus, they smoothed out both of his sideburns, keeping several dozens of tiny niamang braids that were then pulled up to the back of his head. He also put on a white jade ring and wore 3 plumes on his hair in place of the great Chanyu's feathered crown. Chen Xing got up. Although he was still dressed in the Han style as before, what was delivered to him was actually the clothing of the Hus, but it wasn't like Chen Xing took any offense either way. The back part of the Hu clothing was pressed against the skin, which made his waist look very straight. It was completely different from those wide robes and big sleeves of the Hans. Instead, it gave a special kind of handsome, carefree appearance. In addition to this, Fujian also gave their dog a small sheepskin jacket with an extra silver collar. Fujian went as far as to prepare you a set of rings. Chen Xing actually felt a bit curious. Standing in front of a mirror, Xiang Shu was being served by the eunuchs. As his clothes were arranged, he raised his eyebrows questioningly. Suddenly, Chen Xing understood that this set of rings was the great Chanyu's symbol of authority, and that perhaps, Fujian had also prepared them for his own use. Afterward, a eunuch put 3 rings with precious gems inlaid on each of them on Xiang Shu in succession. When Xiang Shu saw that Chen Xing was scrutinizing them, he simply took one ring and passed it to him. Chen Xing was about to decline, but on second thought, he decided to take it. These rings, what are their significance? Chen Xing lowered his head. Xiang Shu's hand was big. That ring, which was supposed to be on his little finger, happened to fit on Chen Xing's ring finger. It was a turquoise ring engraved with trees and many kinds of animals on top of it. To start and end the war, to control trade and commerce as well as territorial division, and to bestow life or death to people, Xiang Shu replied casually, "They're all the great Chanyu's power. The one in your hand means the right over life or death." When the eunuchs saw that Xiang Shu had unexpectedly given one of the great Chanyu's rings to Chen Xing, they immediately wanted to open their mouths. However, since they didn't know what exactly they should say, they could only give a meaningful glance toward each other. Xiang Shu, on the other hand, had already turned around and left the screen. He sat down on a couch, and several people hurriedly brought over a small table and served him milk tea. Chen Xing saw that on the couch outside the screen, unlike the last time, there was a small seat arranged for him. At this, he threw a look at Xiang Shu. "Sit ah." Xiang Shu couldn't understand. What do you want for breakfast? Chen Xing was slightly overwhelmed by this favor. And thus, he went to the couch and sat down together with Xiang Shu, drinking milk tea before starting to have breakfast. As soon as the door was opened, all kinds of people waiting outside the room poured in. Speaking in Tile, Xiangnu, Xianbei, Ruran, and many other languages, they one after another began saying, "The four seas and the prairies are all the great Chanyu's land, and all of the people under the sky are all the great Chanyu's people," and started kowtowing. Chen Xing was scared shitless by the worship, thinking to himself, "It'd be better if you don't ba. It's all fine if you pay respect to Xiang Shu, but kowtowing to me as well, this is too embarrassing." He couldn't help but look at Xiang Shu again. Xiang Shu, like before, was wearing a navy blue brocade robe with the 16 hoods of the ancient Gle Covenant's totem that looked very bright under the sunlight. His head was full of jet black tiny braids. A dark gold, soaring dragon belt was wrapped around his waist, and on his feet were black lacquered boots made of deerskin. Crossing his legs, both of his eyes seemingly shone in the dark just like the light of the star, while his face was showing a cold, stern look as the two rings embedded with precious gems on his fingers reflected the sunlight. Yelasa. Without even properly looking at those people in the hall, Xiang Shu casually opened his mouth and said that before sipping his milk tea once more. Chen Xing soaked a deep-fried sangza in a silver bowl containing cow's milk and used a spoon embedded with a precious gem to scoop it out and eat it. He couldn't help but look at the rest of the people, they were all peeking at Chen Xing, stealing a glance at that ring on his finger. Yelasa means be at ease in the Tile language, Xiang Shu casually said, paying no heed as he finished his breakfast. He then raised his eyebrows, signaling people to say what they wanted to say. Thus, the Hus first began to ask Xiang Shu about when he had arrived, but without even waiting for him to answer, they started to denounce Fujian in succession. Chen Xing felt uncomfortable, as if he were sitting on pins and needles, and couldn't help but steal a glance at Xiang Shu. His mind was full of that scene from when he woke up early in the morning. That body under the great Chanyu's royal garment was incomparably warm, and the scent of his body made him feel at ease and comfortable. He had felt that Xiang Shu was very good looking since the first time around, and now that they were closer, he always couldn't help but want to take a peek at him. Xiang Shu, from the corner of his eye, also shot a glance at him, though he didn't say anything in return. The words from these old-fashioned Hu veterans had slightly agitated him, and he could only nod his head to indicate that he was aware of the situation. After Wang Meng's death, someone said in Xiangnu, Fujian became more and more fond of grandiose deeds. In spite of people trying to dissuade him, he insisted on recruiting more troops to launch an expedition against the Jin, and that Han named Wang Zi is also adding fuel to the fire. That bunch of Han people is now running amok in the court all day long. When Chen Xing saw that someone had begun to talk about the Hans while also shooting him a glance, he added a sentence in Xiangnu, he's no match for the south. Stunned, Xiang Shu looked at Chen Xing. In a split second, all of the people inside the room felt stupid. They didn't expect that Chen Xing could actually understand what they were saying. Chen Xing was nervous that the conversation would soon change subject to why he was there. So, instead of making it awkward, he made it clear that he could speak the Hu language in advance, as to avoid this group of people saying something they shouldn't say. Chen Xing added, although the number of troops of the South Spy Fu army isn't that many, the Hans use the Yangtze River as a natural stronghold, it's not something that he can break through in a matter of seconds. Why did Wang Meng, before meeting his death, warn Fujian again and again that he shouldn't attack the Jin for the rest of his life? He must have had his reasons. Xiang Shu's expression was a complete bafflement. It was because the Xiangnu language spoken by Chen Xing wasn't the common speech in Gle Chuan, but rather, it was the dialect of the ancient Xiangnu people. In Tile language, Xiang Shu said, a person who is bent on going their own way cannot be persuaded by anyone. This was a famous saying of the Tile people. Chen Xing had heard it the last time he went to Gle Chuan, and he still remembered it until now.
Xiang Shu also didn't say another word. Everyone quieted down and soon began to propose that if Xiang Shu was unwilling to overthrow Fujian, could he at least lead the remaining Hus of Chongan back? Xiang Shu said, the road to Chi Le Chuan isn't blocked. Anyone who wishes to leave can just leave. It's up to you. Saying so, he stood up, got off the couch, and actually walked out in front of the crowd. He turned his head back toward Chen Xing and whistled at the dog. Chen Xing returned to his senses and caught up with the dog. Where to? Xiang Shu didn't provide an answer, and that was how those Hu people were left behind in the resting hall. Chen Xing used tile language to continue the latter half of the proverb said by Xiang Shu, smiling as he said, a person who is bent on going their own way cannot be persuaded by anyone, just like how a horse pursued by a fierce wolf cannot be pulled back. To become a sovereign who will be remembered throughout the ages, unifying the North and the South, he must have the mindset of that fierce wolf. Xiang Shu didn't ask where Chen Xing had learned tile and Xiangnu. Instead, he seriously asked, I thought a Han wouldn't want to learn our tile language. Chen Xing had a bit of guilty conscience. He said while smiling, there are many kinds of Han people, just like how there are also many kinds of Hu people. In a deep voice, Xiang Shu said, you Han people, even after another 1,000 or 2,000 years have passed, shouldn't be able to forget this blood feud and deep hatred either. Ba. Chen Xing thought for a moment before saying, you're unlike the rest. Did you ask me to come out just now to ask about this? Go inform Jianta to tell your mounted regular attendant. Xiang Shu stopped walking and said to an imperial guard, to come and drive a carriage for the great Chanyu. And so, Tuobayan came over. As the leader of Fujian's Imperial Guard Squadron, the mounted regular attendant, his official rank was the 4th lower rank. When seeing him, ordinary officials all had to be polite and call him Tuobadaran. However, Xiang Shu, whose status was almost on an equal footing with Fujian, had opened his mouth. Even Fujian didn't know where exactly Tuobayan had offended Xiang Shu, but, in order to get the purple scroll, now was exactly the best time to build a good relationship with Xiang Shu. This is, no need ba, Chen Xing said. Tuobayan was actually very open-minded. After giving Xiang Shu a salute, he proceeded to have people prepare Fujian's carriage and said, Great Chanyu, please. Chen Xing realized that Xiang Shu might have misunderstood and thought that Tuobayan was his childhood bosom friend, but he didn't know how to explain it either. Moreover, Xiang Shu naturally would also keep his mouth shut and omit to mention it. Where do you want to go? The last time he was here, he was so busy that he couldn't do anything else. He had wanted to work but was met with an assassination instead. This time around, he could finally have a taste of Chongan local customs and traditions. I want to get off the carriage and go for a walk, Chen Xing said. Let's go to the market? It'd be better to let Tuobadaran go back first. Ba. The moment the two men got off the carriage, Xiang Shu signaled Tuobayan. Take this dog for a walk, Xiang Shu said to Tuobayan. Don't let it run away or get lost. Chen Xing. In one night, news of the esteemed Great Chanyu's arrival had already spread through the whole city of Chongan. Today, Fujian's imperial carriage had left the palace, making the Hus inside Chongan try their best to outdo each other to come and see Xiang Shu. Along their way, many people stood on both sides of the road, and one after another, they saluted him. At first, Xiang Shu would also reply them with Yelasa, but as time went by, he got tired of saying it and just simply ignored them. More and more people packed the streets, and there were also quite a lot of Han people who came out and strived to catch a glimpse of Xiang Shu's elegant bearing. As a result, Chen Xing became unhappy. He looked at Xiang Shu several times before looking at the surroundings, his mood starting to turn sour. The two people. Xiang Shu, just pretend they don't exist. Where do you want to go? I also haven't been to Chongan for a long time. Chen Xing pulled Xiang Shu toward the place where the Han people gathered. Not a moment later, Fujian actually understood without being told anything and ordered the group of imperial guards to come over and block the road so as to not let people look at them. Since the great Chanyu didn't like to be seen by others, there should be fewer people. After a while, by the time they had reached the Han district, the onlookers surrounding them gradually went away, only leaving some young men and women who couldn't help but steal several glances at Xiangshu. Chen Xing had just wanted to stroll around, but he then saw some stalls hanging bracelets, although they weren't the moonshell bracelets from the autumn deity festival and were merely normal ornaments. He stopped to take a look, Xiangshu standing behind him with hands behind his back. Bargain first, Xiangshu said. Guowang didn't bring any money. Chen Xing ha ed, he knew that Xiangshu must have brought some money and was just teasing him. I don't want to buy it, Chen Xing replied. I just suddenly thought of a story. Xiangshu. Side by side, the two of them slowly walked around the market. Chen Xing thought for a long time before finally saying, our Jiangnan has a festival called the Deity Day. On that day, there's this tradition where two people who mutually like each other will buy two bracelets attached with moon shells and give them to each other. Xiangshu, Chen Xing inclined his head to look at Xiangshu. There were these two people who must have mutually liked each other. When they were strolling down the street, they saw these bracelets and bought them, yet, even after one of them waited for a long time, the other person was hesitant and didn't give the bracelet to them. Later on, the first person asked, "Who are you going to give it to?" To which the man didn't give any reply and put away his own bracelet instead. Xiangshu. Chen Xing wondered, Xiangshu, why do you think that man didn't say a thing any? Xiangshu's face was full of questions. He mulled over it before saying, a mute. Chen Xing. Chen Xing laughed so hard to the point where his entire stomach hurt and he had to lean on the side of the road, but Xiangshu just couldn't understand why. Chen Xing explained it once more. Xiangshu asked, who paid? Chen Xing said, the mute did. Xiangshu questioned, doesn't that mean it already had been given? The money was all the mute's. Oh. Chen Xing was suddenly enlightened. It's like that ah. Xiangshu added, maybe the mute's heart was also not content. Why didn't the person in front of him do it first? Ah, Chen Xing laughed and said, I understand. What you mean is, the mute was waiting for the other person to give it to him first, and was fighting against himself in his heart. Xiangshu simply made a gesture with his hands indicating that he couldn't say for sure. How do you even comprehend love? Chen Xing said once more, but why didn't the mute give it any? He clearly liked the other person. Xiangshu was resolute. Wasn't that girl just relying? Chen Xing interjected, a man. He was a youth, a young man who didn't know anything ba. Xiangshu let out an "oh" and thought for a while before replying again, that young man was just relying on the mute's love for him, so he waited until the mute couldn't resist giving it to him first. The mute, however, had already shown his sincerity by buying the bracelets, so isn't that a sign enough already? Liking is a matter for two people, why should he bully people like this? Where did that come from? Chen Xing suddenly got a little angry. That young man just simply didn't know before. He also liked that mute. Then why didn't he say it? Xiangshu felt slightly baffled. How come when they were talking about other people's matters, Chen Xing suddenly got angry? This man was simply baffling. He thought the mute didn't love him. Chen Xing thought for a while. He was sick and wouldn't live for long. Xiangshu knitted his brows. How come more and more messy circumstances are getting added? Why didn't you make these all clear beforehand? Chen Xing, the matter of two people's feelings, what part can I say clearly? Forget it. Chen Xing was infuriated at Xiangshu. Xiangshu, however, was completely puzzled and asked, what's the matter? He had originally been fine, but all of a sudden, he turned hostile. Is this kid sick? Xiang Shu immediately caught up and sized him up. You. I'm not sick. Chen Xing immediately clarified. That young man isn't me, I just heard about this matter before. Then why are you angry? Xiang Shu asked. Chen Xing immediately answered, Am I? I'm not angry. Oh, we're here. It'd be better to wait for Feng Dage to come out and meet us. Xiang Shu. When they decided to split up before, Feng Yunjun made an agreement with them to come out to meet each other once a day to exchange information. Even if they were hindered by something, they still had to find another way to get in touch. And although they had been blindly walking around, nevertheless, they reached the meeting place located in the Han district. This was a music hall located in the north of the city. Although it was opened by a Han, on ordinary days, many Hus also came to enjoy music and get together. As soon as the great Chanyu arrived, the Hus in the private rooms all came out one after another, bringing their wife and children to salute him. The shopkeeper also went to prepare them seats, and it took a good amount of time for them to sit down. Sounds so bad. Listening to the tune, Chen Xing asked Xiang Shu, Can you play any musical instruments? Xiang Shu was a bit absent-minded. When he heard what Chen Xing had said just now, a lot of things seemingly came to his mind. Yet everything was hazy, and he couldn't catch any of them. Xiang Shu just nodded his head, but he became aware and quickly corrected himself, I can't. I'm sure you can, Chen Xing said, I saw you nod. Xiang Shu. Chen Xing called over the waiter and borrowed a guqin. He tuned the instrument before saying to Xiang Shu, I once heard this piece of music. I don't know its origin, but it seems to be the tune from Sai Wai. I don't know whether you recognize this. Xiang Shu, ever since the conversation in the market, had been lost in his thought all along. His eyebrows were slightly furrowed, he forgot to even look at Chen Xing and just faced the courtyard below the private room in a trance. When he heard Chen Xing begin to play, his expression suddenly changed as he looked at him. Chen Xing had started playing the Fusheng melody, albeit intermittently. At that moment, the whole building turned quiet. Xiang Shu's knitted eyebrows gradually loosened, and he began to concentrate his gaze on Chen Xing. With an inquiring look in Chen Xing's eyes, he took a glance at Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu, however, didn't reply. He just got up and moved behind Chen Xing. Chen Xing. Chen Xing's heart immediately went wild, only to see Xiang Shu's hand loop over his shoulder while his other hand went to the strings. He moved his hand to strum some of the strings as he embraced Chen Xing in this manner. Xiang Shu's breath was within close proximity to his ear, the musical tune similar to moving clouds and flowing water became its company, linking the whole Fusheng melody together. You can play guqin. Chen Xing was shocked and tilted his head. The two people were extremely close to the point that they nearly kissed each other. An unnatural expression immediately appeared in Xiang Shu's face. He quickly let go of Chen Xing's hand and went back to his own seat on the other side. You can actually play guqin. Chen Xing felt like an idiot. It was because Xiang Shu had never told him he could play a qin. What? Xiang Shu felt annoyed. Chen Xing, I thought you would, the qiang flute or something. My mother is a Han, Xiang Shu told him in a very frivolous manner. Chen Xing recalled those days when they used to interact with each other. From the beginning until the end, Xiang Shu had never shown any indication that he could play a guqin, and even let Chen Xing teach him when he had time. Everything was just an act. Chen Xing suddenly didn't know what to say. The great Chanyu's melodies spread far and wide on Sai Wai. From behind the compartment, a girl's smiling voice traveled. Legend has it that even the wild geese passing by will all descend to the ground to listen to him play the qiang flute. Chen Xing. Princess King He? Why is she here? Chen Xing frowned at once. That was because they were shot down by Qiu Wang, Xiang Shu indifferently said. For a moment, Chen Xing didn't know whether he should be amazed at Xiang Shu or in awe of Princess King He instead. He only saw that the person sitting behind the screen turned out to be Princess King He,
whose eyes were bright and whose face was akin to spring waves. She came over to Xiang Shu and slightly gave a salute, to which Xiang Shu replied with a nod. Xiang Shu's eyes then fell on the Han man behind King He. Feng Tian once again, he saw him. Chen Xing sized Feng Tian up, thinking internally, fortunately, we didn't talk about exorcism matters here. Xiang Shu also didn't ask what those two were doing in this place and only did a double take at Feng Tian. Princess King He said again, once numerous households in Chongan heard that the great Chanyu had entered the city, one after another, they entered the palace to seek an audience with their portraits in tow. But I didn't expect the great Chanyu actually ran away here to have a tryst. Still in an indifferent tone, Xiang Shu said, you should return to the palace, King He. If Jiantu can't see you, won't he send dispatch people everywhere to look for you? Princess King He smiled. He has Wang Zi, so he definitely won't look for me. All right then, I'm going back. And so, Princess King He and Feng Tian took their leave and left the private room. Chen Xing turned his head and looked at the color of the sky past the railing. Feng Tianjun still hadn't shown up. Maybe he made use of the time his elder brother wasn't home to start stealing the yin-yang mirror. Wait some more? Chen Xing asked. Xiang Shu suddenly said, Gu Wang has something to do and needs to leave, you. Chen Xing asked, what do you want to do? Of course, I'm going with you. Who else is going to protect me? Xiang Shu seemingly had a bit of difficulty deciding. He simply said in the end, then you must follow my instructions, don't cause any trouble. Obediently, Chen Xing said, okay. Xiang Shu got up and looked downstairs. Chen Xing still didn't know what he planned to do and just followed his gaze, looking around curiously. But then, Xiang Shu started to undress, unfastening his belt and taking off his clothes. Chen Xing thought, how come he just stopped talking in the middle of the conversation and began to undress himself? Xiang Shu took off the outer robe on his upper body before fastening his belt again, showing the black garment he wore beneath and leaving the upper half of his outer robe to angle down. Afterward, he secured the long sleeves into a knot around his waist. This way, nobody could see that he was wearing royal garments. Moving on, he spread out his left hand and easily took off the rings before passing them all to Chen Xing, telling him to properly store them away. Hold me, Xiang Shu said. That's exactly what I want. What I yearn for. Chen Xing thought to himself as he took the initiative to hug Xiang Shu. Xiang Shu. The two people looked at each other. Xiang Shu said, not around the waist. Chen Xing gave an O before switching to hug Xiang Shu's neck instead. Holding Chen Xing in his arms, Xiang Shu turned around and ran several steps before jumping out of the second floor of the music hall in the blink of an eye. Chen Xing had just flown out of the second floor, but he just felt light. Xiang Shu grabbed on the roof tile with one hand and carried him up, flying to the third floor. His left foot briefly thread on the fence of the third floor to gather the momentum, followed by his right foot kicking on the wooden pillar as he flew away without a sound. Carrying Chen Xing, he flipped over in the air and went up the eaves, and amidst the deep color of twilight, he chased after the direction of Feng Tian's departure. This Qinggong is simply awesome. Chen Xing said in his heart. Xiang Shu, with only one hand, had just dragged him up the building, but he actually didn't pay much attention to it. How on earth did you train your Kung Fu? Chen Xing said in a low voice. Want to learn? Asked Xiang Shu casually. He then let go of Chen Xing and dragged him by the hand instead. The two slightly bent down as they focused their gazes on the carriage departing on the street. Chen Xing, is your archery skill exceptional? Xiang Shu answered, quite okay ba. Chen Xing, then, teach me mounted archery when you are free ba. After shooting a glance at Chen Xing, he just took Chen Xing by the hand and moved at a lightning speed without giving a reply. Soon enough, they had already silently gone past the carriage and arrived in front of it. They only saw that when the carriage arrived at the northern corner of a street devoid of people,
a man came up and got on the carriage. The carriage then moved once again. After a while, that man got off the carriage and proceeded to turn around and leave. Chen Xing suddenly remembered this matter and asked in a low voice, "You want to find out what Princess King He and that man were talking about?" Xiang Shu hummed. Chen Xing then remembered that Xiang Shu had forgotten the past. He didn't know that Feng Tian was Feng Tian's elder brother, nor did he know that the yin-yang mirror was in the Feng family's possession. They hadn't mentioned many things to Xiang Shu. Before, Feng Tian and Princess King He must have been conspiring in that place, and surely, there must be some information they had wanted to exchange. But, when Xiang Shu and Chen Xing went upstairs, they happened to bump into them. The two people didn't make any sound for a very long time, so presumably, they were dipping their fingers into the tea and using that to write characters on the table as a means to communicate. But, as long as Xiang Shu had the intention to, he would surely discover the people behind the partition. As long as he titled his head back to look, Princess King He's whereabouts would inevitably be exposed. So, instead of gambling that Xiang Shu wouldn't discover the two of them sitting beside him, she might as well take the initiative to come out and greet him, revealing herself as to not cause any suspicion. Otherwise, if they bumped into each other later, it would look even stranger. So, what were Princess King He and Feng Tian talking about? In all likelihood, it must have been to convey an order. Therefore, after Feng Tian had left, he was very likely going to carry out a specific task. Sure enough, he dispatched a messenger. Xiang Shu replied, "The Murong family wanting to plan a rebellion is not just a matter of 1 or 2 days." That messenger left the street and moved quickly into an empty alley that hid a parked horse. When the messenger was about to turn over and mount his horse, a shadow flew down from the eaves and simply struck the man's nape with his palm, knocking him out. Chen Xing climbed down to the ground and looked at the messenger with a heart full of alarm, while Xiang Shu hauled the man up before kicking him into the depths of the alley. That man was instantly woken up, his face brimming with shock as he looked at Xiang Shu and Chen Xing. "Chen Xing, do you want to hand him over to Fujian?" Xiang Shu stood tall and straight, as if considering the matter. Chen Xing added, "If you hand him over to Fujian, King He certainly. It's dangerous, you should think it through." Xiang Shu just threw a look at Chen Xing but said nothing. Chen Xing measured that messenger up and asked, "What did Feng Tian want you to do? If you explain, you might still be able to survive." "Feng Tian," Xiang Shu said as he knitted his brows. At dusk, inside the Songbei residence, Feng Tian finally managed to get the shopkeeper of the Songbei residence drunk and successfully stole the key to enter the underground warehouse. This amount of wine, Feng Tian drank until he got a headache. Had he known before, he would have prepared some knockout drugs. But if he did knock him out, the shopkeeper would definitely feel there was something fishy when he woke up. The only way to get the key, take out the yin-yang mirror, and then return it later, without raising any suspicions, was to make him drunk first. But this shopkeeper practically didn't succumb even after 1,000 cups and wasted so much of his time. He used the key to open the door leading to the gold vault. Holding a lamp in his hand, he went through the money vault and the silver vault in succession before finally reaching the gold vault in the deepest part of the warehouse. Once he arrived in front of the Tianji lock, he fished out the blueprint given to him by Chen Xing and deciphered the Tianji lock on the door of the secret room according to the drawing. As a light click sound echoed, Feng Tian pushed open the door to the secret room. He turned to take the lamp and directed it to illuminate the room. But there was nothing inside at all. Unlike the first time he went here, everything in the room was all gone. "Feng Tian, Zayadai, are you trying to find this?" Feng Tian's voice sounded from behind him. Feng Tian turned around at once. A loud rumble ensued. The yin-yang mirror erupted out a huge amount of black qi that seemingly could overflow heaven, sucking Feng Tian inside. End chapter.